The Elias Lindholm contract plot thickens, with the Vancouver Canucks reportedly close to conceding on negotiations, which would lead to letting him go to the open market come July 1st, while they are seemingly expressing interest in a potential upgraded replacement. We'll be breaking all of that down in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates surrounding the Canucks this offseason free agency. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Canucks letting Lindholm leave. According to Elliotte Friedman, he said he never wants to say never, but he thinks the Canucks are conceding on Lindholm and moving on. And we saw on June 7th that Lindholm did reject a 7x7 contract from the Canucks. That was a very bold move. Everyone was very, very shocked by that because he seems to be asking so much. And when you look at his stats, it's not to say he's not deserving of it. He's been pretty efficient since he came to Vancouver. I know the regular season wasn't as flashy on the score sheet, but at least his plus minus was pretty decent. And in the playoffs, he did show up with 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points and a +4 rating. Wasn't too bad on a playoff run where there was a few passengers on the train, but he definitely wasn't one of them. He was one of the producers. He was one of the contributors. Absolutely. And when you look at his other seasons in Calgary, that is where he really started to take off after he left the Hurricanes. He hit his stride in Calgary. You could say he kind of caught flames in Calgary when then Vancouver took him while he was on the rise. And I think they took him and Zadorov to try and go on a miracle playoff run where they could go deep with these two guys and not have to worry about the long term. But now that mission was not accomplished, now they're left with having to pick up the pieces with so many free agents to bring back. We've said how many free agents they've had. We've talked about it at length. Everyone knows who they have to bring back and who they have to unfortunately let go. And unfortunately, I do think Lindholm is one of these players that they will have to let go. Like Zadorov, he seems to be asking the world, and in a year where they only brought these guys in last year and going into a year where you want to keep that playoff window open, that championship window open, the chemistry is going to be everything. And with these guys having only gotten there last season, it is tough to validate keeping them over a guy like Tyler Myers, like Dakota Joshua, where you don't, or Filip Hronek, where they've had established such a good chemistry with this team and with Rick Tocchet as the coach, that it would be hard to want to keep a guy like Lindholm, who hasn't been with the team too long, and let a guy like Dakota Joshua walk, where you could have more, maybe not as flashy production, but you would have more team chemistry and efficiency should you keep those pieces and go get another center to fill in that gap. And like I said, with Lindholm have only been there on a short term, in a short amount of time, you're not going to be losing too much chemistry. In that sense, you're just losing a player who seems to be asking way too much money in a year where a lot of players are asking for a lot of money. We're seeing contracts get more and more ludicrous as time goes on. And I think we're seeing that with Lindholm. We're seeing that with Zadorov. And it is very tough to validate. And again, Lindholm it's not like he's not worth the money. He was number 5 overall draft pick, and he has been showing that he is worthy of that high draft pick. He's had great seasons. He's had his ups and downs, don't get me wrong, but it's been a mostly great career for him so far. Again, I just don't think Vancouver has the means to make it work. I would much rather see a guy like Dakota Joshua, like maybe potentially Filip Hronek, depends on what his price is asking for. Tyler Myers, absolutely would love to see him back more. So there is other players that I think myself and I think Mark would agree with me as well, that we would like to see other players come back rather than Lindholm. Not to say he wasn't great for us. Definitely appreciate all he did, especially in the playoffs where he was able to make some great goals and get some great opportunities, especially on a mostly dead power play where they weren't able to get much going. He was that life on the power play, and he was that spark that kind of got them going in a few games, especially in the Nashville series where he was one of the stars of that series without a doubt. But again, where you do need to find a replacement, I think there is a potential replacement out there. And in my words, go for Guentzel is what I say. And then you see Elliotte Friedman had a continuously busier day where he said, I think they would love to get Guentzel. I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's impossible. Do I think they're looking into it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do make a serious push for Jake Guentzel. We saw here on Canucks Central, Guentzel really wanted to come here to the Canucks. according to Shah, where you see this edit on Twitter where you see Guentzel in a Canucks uniform. I would buy that jersey 100%, and I would love to see him in blue instead of black and red. I think a lot of Canucks fans would also like to see that, especially when you look at his stats. This guy has been a production machine. I know he came to Carolina at the trade deadline or later in the year where he wasn't able to be there for the entire season, but in the 17 games he played, he still had 8 goals, 17 assists for 25 points, plus 8 rating. And in the playoffs, in those 11 games, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points, plus 16. Those are penalty minutes. But he was able to be productive in the postseason when Carolina just got destroyed in the second round by the Rangers, and it was disappointing to see them get knocked out so early, but Guentzel still showed so much value with his free agency stock that a lot of teams are going to be wanting him. He is a player, like we've seen with his stats, production after production. He has gotten many point per game. He has gotten a few point per game seasons, and he is someone who I think can consistently put up a point per game. And when you look at Lindholm's stats, when in comparison, these guys were drafted the same year. Guentzel's played considerably less games than Lindholm has. Mind you, yes, that was part of it in the SEL and the AHL, of course. But when you look at their goals and their other stats, it is pretty jarring to see how far ahead Guentzel really is from him. And it doesn't seem like he's that much far off of a player as Lindholm is. So if you're able to get him on a contract that's same value or a little bit less than Lindholm, I say jump on it. Yes, a guy like Filip Hronek, if you got to ship him out to make that happen, I think he's one of those casualties along with Ian Cole that you can let go to make that happen, because I think Guentzel would be just a great fit for this team. I mean, when you look at Vancouver's lines, where you are going to potentially lose Lindholm, you definitely throw him in on that second line. Joshua, Guentzel, Garland, I think that would be a trio in a second line that a lot of teams would be very scared of. Garland's super fast. He's got the chemistry with Joshua. We've said how so many times, I've said it a bunch of times, that they are the Batman and Robin of this team. I think those two are a dynamic duo. So if you add Guentzel to that mix, or even on a line swap with JT Miller where they can go back and forth, where he can work with Petey and Brock Boeser. I know McKayb's on there. This is pulled from the final playoff game where Brock Boeser was missing. But if you can kind of alternate those two lines without messing up the chemistry too much, I think it could be an interesting monkey wrench to throw at teams where they're not expecting to see where Guentzel or Miller are going to be at any given time. And if you bump Suter up to that third line, again, I like Teddy Blueger and I like Pius Suter. I think Pius Suter did have some great moments for us in the postseason. He did get that game-winning goal against Nashville, actually series-winning goal against Nashville, I should say. But I don't think that Suter and Blueger are strong enough centers to move them up to either of them up to the second line for the entire season. I think you do need a guy like Guentzel to bring in that depth at the center position should they lose Lindholm. And I think he is that great fit for it. I think he is a player who would be able to stay out of the box like you see there. He doesn't have too many penalty minutes, where he's got 232 penalty minutes in the past few seasons. And I think the biggest thing when you got to look at Guentzel, his plus minus. He's had only one season with a negative plus minus rating, which means when he's not scoring, he's creating opportunities for his teammates. He's like a Brendan Dillon, where good things are going to happen when he's on the ice. Or like we've mentioned with Jonathan Lekkerimäki. I know people are tired of us talking about him, but we've said how great things happen with him on the power play and how Vancouver needs that. I think if Guentzel comes in there where he has a very high career plus minus, where he's going to make good things happen on the ice and he's going to contribute as far as scoring, I think that's a guy where if you're able to get him at the same price Lindholm, go for it. Absolutely make it happen, because, again, this is a team that needs depth without compromising chemistry. And I think of all the UFAs that they have, I think Lindholm is the one that you can't afford to let go. As great of a player as he is, I think he's the biggest one where you don't have too much chemistry with the team. Nikita Zadorov was there the same amount of time, and he has seemed to integrate with the team a bit more, it seems. So if you let Lindy go, I think if you bring in Guentzel, that would be a very interesting dynamic without messing with the team chemistry, and you would have a much more productive player at center than Lindholm, in my opinion at least. I don't know if you guys will agree. Let us know down in the comments what you think about Guentzel versus Lindy. Which one would you rather keep? Which one would you rather see go? Would love to hear what you guys have to think. You could be featured as comment of the day in the next video. And with that, let's hop into comment of the day. And we see from this commenter that Lindholm already turned down a 7x7 offer. I don't see the Canucks going any higher than that, so he's gone, and I definitely agree. That was basically the basis of this video, where if Lindholm's already rejected a 7x7, what more can the Canucks do to keep him in Vancouver without having to just break the bank and just settle on just pouring all their money into Lindholm and Zadorov? I don't see a universe where that is the possibility, especially when you have guys like Joshua and Myers on that list, where those guys are a more cohesive part of the team than those guys are. The Zadorov and Lindholm came there later in the year last year at the deadline. So keeping a guy like Blueger and Joshua definitely helps more with team chemistry, like I've said a few times. But again, what did you guys think of this video? Well, let us know down in the comments. You could be featured as comment of the day. And with that, we'll see you next time. Take care.